Top of the morning to you and welcome to our special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Olumide Macaulay. The headlines. Container ship leaves Ukrainian port of Odessa despite Russian threat of attack. Red Cross evacuates civilians from Kupiansk frontline. Plus, the Danish foreign minister urges China to speak up to Russia on Ukraine war. Thank you for joining us. The Russian Ministry of Defense says that its forces have now repelled multiple assaults from Ukraine in the directions of Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Donetsk, while Ukrainian armed forces announced progress in the directions of Melitopol and Berdyansk. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, its air defenses shut down a Ukrainian Su-25 fighter jet in Donetsk and intercepted 4 HIMARS missiles, 2 BM-30 missiles, and 26 unmanned aerial vehicles. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff issued a report saying that offensive operations are still making progress in directions of Melitopol and Berdyansk over the past 24 hours. The report also said the Ukrainian Air Force conducted 7 strikes on Russian troops and equipment. Ukrainian multiple rocket launchers and artillery also hit Russian artillery, air defenses, and other important targets. Separately, Russia's Federal Security Services, FSB, said on Wednesday that a Ukrainian reconnaissance sabotage group attempting to enter the country's Bryansk Oblast was defeated and 4 members were killed. However, Ukraine's authorities have not yet commented. Let's talk now to Dr. Kunle Olawumi, retired Navy Commodore, head of the Department of International Relations and Diplomatic Studies, Christian University, Abeokuta. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Navy Commodore, the National Security Spokesperson of the U.S., John Kirby, seems to be echoing a logical train of thought, saying that it's not clear what threats the Wagner mercenary group could pose to Europe. If you remember, at the beginning of the what they call the uprising, what they called the mutiny of the Wagner forces, there was even talk that Prigozhin, Yevgeny, had ambitions of taking over Russia by way of a coup, and some went as far as to call it a coup. That, of course, is a preposterous idea, knowing the iron fist with which Putin rules Russia and his inner circle, and how difficult it will be to even command any sort of support from anyone to so much as conduct a coup in Russia. But that's part of the propaganda. So what do you make of Poland's reactions to the Wagner mercenary groups? Is this making the mountain of a molehill, or are they indeed a threat? Also, sorry, for your information, the Wagner mercenary group has been registered in Belarus as a limited liability company for educational purposes by Alexander Lukashenko.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I'm smiling because I'm enjoying the game, you know. This is a chess game, and it started since 2014 when the NATO forces, played the first piece on the board. And after that, the Russians reacted, and it's been a very complex war game, but I'm enjoying it because I can almost predict what the game is all about. The move the Russians made, by staging a coup and moving the Wagner group to Belarus. I said on this program once that it's like a gambit game. That coup was a ruse. A lot of people don't believe me, but this move is very strategic because this is a queen move on the chessboard. I'm enjoying it because it has actually achieved its objective, which is increasing the ambiguity NATO are confused now. You had the spokesperson saying they don't even really understand what the Wagner groups are doing. The ambiguity is that the Wagner group will attack, maybe some areas in those front lines of Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, and perhaps maybe carry out some probing attacks in Poland. But I think what is more plausible to me in this game is that the Wagner group are actually positioned there to attack Kiev. I said it once, and some people feel it's not the case. Some people even feel that the coup was real. I'm enjoying it because now the NATO are in dilemma now as to what the real intention of the game master is. For me, Wagner will not attack Poland because that would be a stupid move by Putin if he decided at this point to attack Poland. It's going to escalate beyond reasonable doubt, and it's not going to be a wise move by Putin. In this kind of game of chess, the game masters are not really going for the king, and that's what is different from the actual war, the theater operations, and a game of chess. Your intention may be in a game of chess to capture the king, but in this game, it's going to likely end in stalemate. The Wagner group will not enter Poland. Once you do, then you trigger the Third World War, which I think is not in the interest of Russia, which I think is not in the interest of NATO. It may be convenient for the United States because it's not within their border area. But I don't think the Europeans will be happy if Wagner group attack Poland, thereby activating Article 5 of the NATO treaty. So I don't think anybody is going to make that mistake among the two players, that's the United States and Putin. They should anticipate, as I said earlier in this program, that Wagner group may likely be used more in Kiev than in Poland. And for the African aspect of it, of course, they need a lot of resources, to prosecute that war. So Wagner will be doing a lot of stealing in Africa so that Putin can have enough resources to fight this war.
Your chess analogy is useful. I'm more of a draft guy, but we know that it is not a game. And if we talk about battle strategy and battle plans and the battle execution going on by the Ukrainians and the Russians at the front lines, then maybe we'll have another look at how successful both sides are. For instance, as they play this game of chess, as they move these men up and down, lives are being lost, and that's why it's good to be conciliatory, to try and find a middle ground so both sides can come back to the negotiating table. But to the prosecution of the war at the front lines, some analysts have said that the Ukrainians, obviously with the benefit of the expertise of military commanders around the world, have been very smart with the way they're trying to pull out the Russians from the areas in which they're concentrated behind their mines. So they're saying that they attack them in certain areas for the Russians to leave other areas to try and defend themselves in that area. And then when they've exhausted their defense, then the Ukrainians attack them from another area. And that's why the Ukrainian counter-offensive has been slow, that it has been deliberately slow on the part of the Ukrainians so as to draw out the war, so as to spread out, to stretch out the Russian fighters, that they may have an inroad. What's your opinion?
Yeah, actually, I listened to an Ukrainian soldier a few minutes ago. He wasn't very happy that they are being criticized, about their slow movements on the battlefield, There's no way you can actually fly over those mines. I said on this program before that the Ukrainians should just leave those mines alone and conduct a maneuverage approach. They have been brought down there, they kept on losing men materials, and it is convenient actually for Putin, and it's also convenient for the United States. The longer this war, goes on, the better for them. What a lot of pundits may not realize is that outside the battle zone that we are seeing, a lot of wars are going on. If you look at what is happening in the Scandinavian countries, Finland, Norway, Sweden, even Netherlands, that's another area that we're not paying attention to. And if you look at what the Americans are doing in Guam, as of yesterday, they are putting so much missiles and interceptors in Guam. Guam is actually in the south of China and also in the east of Manila. And people are not saying that, what is happening in Ukraine itself, as you are talking about the tactics. I'm not very comfortable discussing tactics because, in war, so those things you are seeing as tactics, they're just series of battles, pockets of battles here and there. And it does not really speak about what is really the objective of that war. The tactics by the Ukrainians are adopting has been criticized by NATO and the West, by and large. But, you have to also see how they are coping with the new equipments they are taking. Some of these equipments, they are not really used to them. The tactics that those equipments are supposed to be applied, it's not something you can learn in 6 weeks, So it's easy to sit down in an office as I do and criticize what the Ukrainians are doing. They are doing their best, but they're not looking at the big picture, the strategy. What is the objective? Is the objective to just take the Donbass? They should expand their objective beyond Donbass. I expected the Ukrainians now to be hitting some strategic areas inside Russia. I don't know, I didn't want to say this, but I was wondering what they've been waiting for. They should diversify their plans. Plan B, what is their plan B? What is their plan C? Why should you bog down? Why should you make Donbass your objective, your sole objective? Even if you get it, that Donbass region, you still have Crimea to contend with, you have the Black Sea to contend with. So they should be very flexible in their tactics. As I said, I don't feel comfortable discussing tactics except you're in the battle zone. And then you can really feel what is going on there. But I think they should diversify. They should leave that Donbass region that is so well defended. The kind of defense that the Russians have put in that place is going to be very grinding. I mean, we are going back to First World War, Second World War, where you line up people and you fight a battle of attrition. This is not Second World War. This is not First World War. Ukrainians should change tactics. They should be flexible in their strategy. They should hit Russia where it pains them most, inside Russia, so that they can also look back and try to diversify. Look at what the Russians are doing to the Europeans. They keep on, diversifying their approach. Look at now, they're in dilemma as to why what is the Wagner, what are they doing there? The NATO group should also advise the Ukrainian fighters to avoid war of attrition where they're going to lose so much equipment and men, and try to seek an alternative objective. Flexibility is one of the, point that you have to take, in war. You have to be flexible.
Okay, Navy Commodore, having served in that capacity, you have an understanding of maritime warfare. Is there a danger that Ukraine will be provoking the naval fleets of Russia to go on a more concerted attack against them because they have not stayed away from the Black Sea? They have also attacked using underwater drones some of the Russian ships. They have also said that a civilian ship should be able to have sailed forth out of a Ukrainian port, and they have also promised a Ukrainian humanitarian corridor, regardless of the Russian blockade of the Black Sea. Is any danger existing that Ukraine is going to provoke Russia to begin to actually use its warships but we understand that Ukraine's warships capacity is negligible compared to the Russians.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. That would be a red flag. Both sides, the NATO forces, Turkey, and some of those frontline states, they know it's going to be a red flag. The Russians are very, very strong. They are stronger at sea. And to provoke a naval battle at the Black Sea is going to mess up that entire region. It's going to affect Turkey, Georgia. It's going to affect some other countries, even that are far, Kazakhstan and so on. They're going to tread very carefully, not to provoke a maritime warfare with Russia. They are very strong. They are very strong in that area. And I think they should try to see how they can negotiate their way out of an explosive affair in the Black Sea. That's a red flag. They shouldn't go there. I've seen the way their ships, the grain ships, left about 3 days ago through the corridor. And I think you can't be too sure. How do you draw the lines, within the Black Sea? How do you ensure that they are within limits? Are you talking about the territorial waters, 12 nautical miles from the baseline? Are you talking about the 2 nautical miles? Are you talking about 24 nautical miles? You have to be careful because the ceiling of communications can be a bit fluid. Weather can take your ship off course, instruments can take your ship off course. And when you have the kind of powers that the Black Sea fleet has, I think it's an area the allies should avoid. They should tread carefully not to provoke Russia into a maritime warfare.
Finally, do you think that Ukraine should build up its naval capacity? And why are battleships so expensive? We understand that Russia right now is the biggest naval superpower, that they have more ships than anybody else, and the United States is trying to play catch-up with China, who have about 400 battleships, and the United States over 200 battleships, not to talk of the other ones that have significantly less. Why is it so expensive compared to maybe air power?
Yeah, on most people, people, they see me as a commodore, but I discuss some of these things. The training for maritime operations is total. I can operate in the air, land, amphibious. So it is very expensive to train naval officers, and their equipment are also total. We have landing ship craft, we have special forces that can operate from sea to land. The equipments are huge. When I was commanding a combatant 3, I was carrying missiles, the automatic missiles, that each of them cost as much as 500 million. And if you want to use one, you have to be very careful to see the cost benefits. You have to do cost benefit analysis. If you want to produce a warship today, it's going to take minimum, even if you fast track it, it's going to take, depending on the class, whether it's a frigate, a destroyer, an aircraft carrier, maybe even submarines. If you're going to build submarines or warships, it takes time, 1 year, 2 years, sometimes 36 months. And it's not just to build the warships, you need to train men. I was carrying about 78 men on board a small combatant frigate, FPB, we call them. Each of them has to have specializations: marine, electrical, electronics, weapons, navigation and direction, communication signals. Even we call landing team and body
Maybe,
team.
Commodore, we're going to have to interrupt you there. So sorry. I was really listening to you, and I'm sure all our viewers are as well. Welcome to the final stretch. And finally, a father and son who fight in the same Ukrainian brigade took part in firing drills in southeastern area on Wednesday alongside dozens of other soldiers. 56 21-year-old Vladimir and 26-year-old Denis came from Ukraine's Dnipro, where they used to work shoulder to shoulder in the logistics business, transporting construction material. When full-fledged war broke out in Ukraine in February 2022, the two were enrolled in the same territorial defense brigade. Speaking after a drill simulating the capture of enemy positions, both father and son say they were trying to live as one family, covering and looking out for each other on the battlefield. And that's where we will leave it for today's Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for watching. Thank you to our guests as well and our producers. Have a good day. Do join us again tomorrow.